हम लोग शुरू करते हैं हमारे लॉजिक के सिलेबस के साथ फॉर सेमेस्टर 4। तो जब हमने सेमेस्टर 1 में हमारा लॉजिक किया था, उस लॉजिक में बेसिकली हमने क्लासिकल या एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक को पढ़ा था। नाउ हम पढ़ेंगे मॉडर्न लॉजिक, जिसे सिंबॉलिक लॉजिक भी कहा जाता है, जिसमें हम लोग सिंबल्स के ऊपर बहुत फोकस करते हैं। हम एक जो पूरा के पूरा स्टेटमेंट है या प्रीमाइस जो हम बोलते हैं प्रोपोजिशन है, उससे भी आर्ग्यूमेंट्स को, सिलॉजिज्म्स को, हम सभी चीज़ों को सिंबल्स में कन्वर्ट कर देते हैं। तो हम लोग इस चैप्टर में क्या क्या पढ़ने वाले हैं। चैप्टर का नाम ही आप देख सकते हैं, सिंबॉलिक लॉजिक है, जिसमें हम लोग मॉडर्न लॉजिक और इसके सिंबॉलिक लैंग्वेज के बारे में थोड़ा सा पहले समझेंगे। फिर हम सिंबल्स देखेंगे, कंजंक्शन, नेगेशन, डिसजंक्शन के लिए हम मटेरियल इम्प्लीकेशन और कंडीशनल स्टेटमेंट्स देखेंगे। तो ये सब चीज़ें बिकॉज इट्स द वेरी फर्स्ट टाइम जो कि हम ये सब पढ़ने वाले हैं, but with time you'll be able to understand all of it. Now, modern logic and its symbolic language. To have a full understanding of deductive reasoning, we need a general theory of deduction. तो हमें डिडक्टिव रीजनिंग की कैसे हम दो प्रीमाइसेस का यूज़ करके हम लोग इंक्लूसिवली उसका कंक्लूजन निकाल पाते हैं, दैट इज़ व्हाट इज़ द डिडक्टिव आर्ग्यूमेंट। एंड उसको समझने के लिए हमें सबसे पहले डिडक्शन के बारे में पूरा समझना पड़ेगा। तो एक जनरल थ्योरी डिडक्शन की, और डिडक्शन को समझने के लिए उसके दो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स होंगे। पहला, टू एक्सप्लेन द रिलेशन बिटवीन प्रीमाइसेस एंड इट्स कंक्लूजन इन डिडक्टिव आर्ग्यूमेंट्स। कि आर्ग्यूमेंट को अगर हम बोल रहे हैं कि इट्स अ डिडक्टिव आर्ग्यूमेंट, यानी कि उसका कंक्लूजन जो है वो कम्प्लीटली उसके प्रीमाइसेस से निकल कर आ रहा है। एंड टू प्रोवाइड टेक्निक्स फॉर डिस्क्रिमिनेटिंग बिटवीन वैलिड एंड इनवैलिड डिडक्शंस। तो हम लोग कोई भी डिडक्शन की जनरल थ्योरी के दो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या होंगे। पहला, जो प्रीमाइस और कंक्लूजन के बीच का रिलेशन बता सके कि कैसे कंक्लूजन प्रीमाइसेस से ही इंक्लूसिवली डिराइव हो रहा है। एंड सेकंड, कि कैसे हम डिडक्शंस में भी वैलिड एंड इनवैलिड डिडक्शंस को पहचान सकते हैं। टू ग्रेट बॉडीज ऑफ लॉजिकल थ्योरी हैव सॉट टू अचीव दीज एंड्स। द फर्स्ट इज कॉल्ड द क्लासिकल और एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक, द सेकंड कॉल्ड मॉडर्न सिंबॉलिक और मैथमेटिकल लॉजिक इन दिस चैप्टर। तो हमारा फोकस जो होगा, बिकॉज वी हैव ऑलरेडी स्टडीड अ टैड बिट अबाउट द एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक इन सेमेस्टर 1, नाउ वी विल शिफ्ट टू द मॉडर्न लॉजिक और द सिंबॉलिक लॉजिक हमारे सेमेस्टर 4 के लॉजिक, ट्रूथ फंक्शनल लॉजिक के कोर्स में। Although these two great bodies of theory have similar aims, they proceed in very different ways. तो एम दोनों का सिमिलर है। जो हमने दो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स पढ़े, दोनों थ्योरीज जो है वो इन दोनों ऑब्जेक्टिव्स को अचीव करने की कोशिश करती है, बट द वे इन विच दैट दे अचीव दीज ऑब्जेक्टिव्स आर वेरी डिफरेंट। मॉडर्न लॉजिक डज नॉट बिल्ड ऑन द सिस्टम ऑफ सिलॉजिज्म्स। एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक जो है वो सिलॉजिज्म्स के ऊपर बिल्ड करता है, मॉडर्न लॉजिक डजंट डू दैट। इट डज नॉट बिगिन विद द एनालिसिस ऑफ कैटेगोरिकल प्रोपोजिशंस। हमने Aristotelian में, if you remember, we have read about the universal and the particular propositions, the negative and the positive propositions. So modern logic does not build upon these categorical propositions. It does seek to discriminate valid from invalid arguments, although it does so using very different concepts and techniques. तो differences हमने दो देख लिए। Similarity ये है कि valid से और invalid arguments के बीच का difference दोनों ही methods of करते हैं एरिस्टोटलियन एंड मॉडर्न लॉजिक, दोनों ही डिस्क्रिमिनेट करेंगे हमारे लिए वैलिड और इनवैलिड के बीच में, लेकिन उनका मेथड इज़ वेरी डिफरेंट. Therefore, we must now begin afresh, developing a modern logical system that deals with some of the very same issues dealt with by traditional logic and does so even more effectively. Modern logic begins by first identifying the fundamental logical connectors on which deductive arguments depend. Using these connectors, a general account of such arguments is given and method for testing the validity of arguments are developed. तो सबसे पहले हम लोग लॉजिकल कनेक्टिव्स के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, और इन लॉजिकल कनेक्टिव्स हम कुछ फंडामेंटल लॉजिकल कनेक्टिव्स के बारे में पढ़ेंगे, ओके, द वेरी बेसिक वंस इस चैप्टर में, एंड फिर उसके ऊपर हम लोग बिल्ड करेंगे हमारी जो भी थ्योरी होगी आगे की. This analysis of deduction requires an artificial symbolic language. In a natural language, English or any other, there are peculiarities that make exact logical analysis difficult. Words may be vague or equivocal. The construction of arguments may be ambiguous. Metaphors and idioms may confuse or mislead. Emotional appeals may distract. These difficulties can largely overcome with an artificial language in which logical relations can be formulated with with precision. The most fundamental elements of this modern symbolic language will be introduced in this chapter. Basically हमने यहाँ पे देखा कि why this symbolic language was needed, why this symbolism is useful, why these symbols जो कि हम modern logic में use करेंगे तो हमारे लिए क्यों ज़रूरी था कि हम जितने भी sentences है propositions है उनको through symbols समझें. So the reasons we have seen that English language या कोई भी और language में if we are writing, stating propositions and arguments, it becomes very vague, very difficult to understand sometimes. Okay, so through symbols हम एक artificial language सीखेंगे and उस symbolic language को सीख के we will scale down those long or sometimes confusing, tedious arguments into small symbols जिनके बाद उनको operate करना will be much easier. Symbols greatly facilitate our thinking about arguments. They enable us to get to the heart of an argument, exhibiting its essential nature and putting aside what is not essential. Moreover, with symbols we can perform almost mechanically with the eye some logical operations which might otherwise demand great effort. It may seem paradoxical, but a symbolic language therefore helps us to accomplish some intellectual tasks without having to think too much. The Indo-Arabic numerals we use today 1 to 3 illustrate the advantages of an improved symbolic language. They replace cumbersome Roman numerals which are very difficult to manipulate. To multiply 113 by 9 is easy. To multiply this 113 by 9 which is written in Roman numerals is not so easy. Even the Roman scholars contend were obliged to find ways to symbolize numbers more efficiently. So we saw what is the use of symbols, that why the symbols that we use in this symbolic logic क्यों वो ज़रूरी है, क्या उन्होंने फैसिलिटेशन किया है हमारे वे ऑफ लॉजिक में, हमारे डूइंग ऑफ लॉजिक में, वैलिडिटी इनवैलिडिटी ऑफ आर्ग्यूमेंट्स को डिस्क्रिमिनेट करने में, क्या ईज़ जो सिम्बल्स हैं वो लाए हैं हमारी वर्किंग के लिए. और उसका एक लाइव हमने एग्जाम्पल भी देखा कि जो इंडो अरबिक न्यूमरल्स हमने देखे 1 2 3, और अगर आप कंपेयर करें उसको रोमन न्यूमरल्स से तो द इंडो अरबिक न्यूमरल्स आर मच ईजियर टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड परफॉर्म ऑपरेशंस. आपने देखा कि 113 by 9 को जब इंडो अरबिक न्यूमरल्स में हमने लिखा है तो इट इज़ सो ईजियर टू परफॉर्म एज कम्पेयर टू द रोमन न्यूमरल्स. Classical logicians did understand the enormous value of symbols in analysis. Aristotle used symbols as variables in his own analysis and in his own analysis, and the refined system of Aristotelian logistics uses symbols in very sophisticated ways. However, much real progress has been made mainly during the 20th century in devising and using logical symbols more effectively. So Aristotle also used symbols उनके लॉजिक के लिए, बट द सिस्टम ऑफ सिम्बल्स हैज़ नाउ इम्प्रूव्ड ग्रेटली. अगर हम कंपेयर करें एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक को एंड मॉडर्न लॉजिक को, तो एरिस्टोटलियन लॉजिक में जिस तरीके से सिम्बल्स का यूज़ हुआ है उसके कंपैरिजन में मॉडर्न लॉजिक में और भी ज़्यादा इफेक्टिव हो गया है सिम्बल्स का यूज़. द मॉडर्न सिम्बॉलिज्म विथ विच डिडक्शन इज एनालाइज डिफर्स ग्रेटली फ्रॉम द क्लासिकल. तो मॉडर्न और क्लासिकल का यूज़ है जैसे सिम्बल्स को लेकर वो बहुत डिफरेंट है. द रिलेशंस ऑफ क्लासेस ऑफ थिंग्स आर नॉट सेंट्रल फॉर मॉडर्न लॉजिशियंस एज दे वर फॉर एरिस्टोटल एंड हिज फॉलोअर्स. इंस्टेड लॉजिशियंस look now to the internal structure of propositions and arguments and to the logical links, very few in number, that are critical in all deductive argument. Modern symbolic logic is therefore not encumbered, as Aristotelian logic was, by the need to transform deductive arguments into syllogistic form. The system of modern logic we now begin to explore is in some ways less elegant than analytical syllogistics, but is more powerful. There are forms of deductive argument that syllogistics cannot adequately address. Using the approach taken by modern logic with its more versatile symbolic language, we can pursue the aims of deductive analysis directly, and we can penetrate more deeply. The logical symbols we shall now explore permit more complete and more efficient achievement of the central aim of deductive logic, discriminating between valid and invalid arguments. So हमारा बहुत एक फंडामेंटल एंड सेंट्रल एम लॉजिक पढ़ने का है कि हम वैलिड और इनवैलिड आर्ग्यूमेंट्स के बीच में डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कर पाए, जिसमें मॉडर्न लॉजिक जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा हमारी हेल्प करता है, क्योंकि मॉडर्न लॉजिक जिस तरीके की सिम्बल्स का यूज़ करता है, दो सिम्बल्स आर वेरी पावरफुल एंड वेरी वेरी इफेक्टिव एज़ कम्पेयर टू द क्लासिकल लॉजिक। अब हम देखते हैं कि कंजंक्शन, निगेशन एंड डिसजंक्शन के लिए क्या सिम्बल्स हैं। तो इस चैप्टर में हम लोग बहुत ही सिंपल आर्ग्यूमेंट्स का यूज़, जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं, द ब्लाइंड प्रिजनर हैज़ अ रेड हैट और द ब्लाइंड प्रिजनर हैज़ अ वाइट हैट। द ब्लाइंड प्रिजनर डज नॉट हैव अ रेड हैट, देयरफॉर द ब्लाइंड प्रिजनर हैज़ अ वाइट हैट। तो देखेंगे इट्स अ वेरी सिंपल आर्ग्यूमेंट, ठीक है। एंड if Mr. Robinson is the brakesman, so this example is another example. So these are very simple arguments. हम इन्हीं के साथ डील करेंगे. Every argument of this general type contains at least one compound statement. In studying such arguments, we divide all statements into two general categories, simple and compound. तो अब हम देखेंगे कि जो दोनों arguments को हमने formulate किया है, यहाँ पर हमने example देखा है, both these arguments have simple statements as well as compound statements. Now these simple and compound statements are the basic English wale simple and compound statement. A simple statement does not contain any other statement as a component. तो एक simple statement जो होता है, it's a single statement, उसमें साथ कोई भी दूसरा statement as a component नहीं होता है, as a part of it नहीं होता है. For example, Charlie is neat. Now this is a simple statement, इसमें कोई भी दूसरा statement इसका part नहीं है. A compound statement does contain another statement as a component. For example, Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet. Okay, so Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet. There are two different statements that are joined together. So two different statements, when we put them differently, if we look at the complete statement, Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet, ये पूरा एक स्टेटमेंट है, लेकिन ये पूरा एक स्टेटमेंट के भी दो स्टेटमेंट कंपोनेंट पार्ट्स हैं इसके. वन इज़ चार्ली इज़ नीट एंड अनदर इज़ चार्ली स्वीट, एंड ये दोनों स्टेटमेंट्स मिलके एक नया स्टेटमेंट फॉर्म कर रहे हैं, विच इज़ अ कंप्लीट न्यू स्टेटमेंट ऑल टुगेदर. सो बिकॉज इट contains two simple statements as components. तो Charlie is neat एक simple statement है, Charlie is sweet एक simple statement है, and दोनों are component parts of this compound statement, Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet. Of course, the components of a compound statement may themselves be compound. In formulating definitions and principles in logic, one must be very precise. What appears simple often proves more complicated than had been supposed. The notion of a component of a statement is a good illustration of this need for caution. One might suppose that a component of a statement is simply a part of a statement that itself is a statement. But this account does not define the term with enough precision, because one statement may be a part of a larger statement and yet not be a component of it in a strict sense. For example, consider the statement, the man who shot Lincoln was an actor. Plainly, the last four words of this statement are a part of it and could indeed be regarded as a statement. It is either true or it is false that Lincoln was an actor. But the statement that Lincoln was an actor, although undoubtedly a part of the larger statement, is not a component of a larger statement. So there is a difference. एक compound statement में ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ भी मिलाकर वो एक दूसरा statement बनाना है. It is a necessary कि एक compound statement has to be made of two or more simple statements. जैसे हमने यहाँ पर देखा कि the man who shot Lincoln was an actor. अगर हम इसका half part देखें, Lincoln was an actor, तो if we put it differently, Lincoln was an actor is making a statement, is itself independently a statement which makes sense that Lincoln was an actor or Lincoln was not an actor, whatever. But the thing is that when we put it together with the man who shot Lincoln was an actor, so this part Lincoln was an actor एक अलग से simple statement नहीं है. So that is what is necessary for us to distinguish कि हम compound statements तभी बनते हैं when two simple statements are put together. कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट में सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं होता है कि बस उसका एक पार्ट होना चाहिए विच शुड मेक अ स्टेटमेंट इटसेल्फ. कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट का मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो पूरे स्टेटमेंट का एक पार्ट अगर मिलकर एक इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेटमेंट बना रहा है मतलब वो कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट है. दैट इज़ रॉन्ग. We can explain this by noting that for part of a statement to be a component of its statement, two conditions must be satisfied. तो अगर हमें कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट देखना है और हमें देखना है कि एक कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट कैसे तभी बनता है जब वो एक स्टेटमेंट उसका कंपोनेंट हो, उसके लिए दो कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई होनी चाहिए. द पार्ट मस्ट बी अ स्टेटमेंट इन इट्स ओन राइट, कि उसके खुद ही इंडिपेंडेंटली वो पार्ट जो है वो एक स्टेटमेंट होना चाहिए. एंड इफ द पार्ट इज रिप्लेस्ड इन द लार्जर स्टेटमेंट बाय एनी अदर स्टेटमेंट, द रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट रिप्लेसमेंट मस्ट बी मीनिंगफुल, इट मस्ट मेक सेंस. कि अगर वो जो कॉम्पोनेंट स्टेटमेंट है, जो कॉम्पोनेंट है उस लार्जर स्टेटमेंट का, इफ वन ऑफ द कॉम्पोनेंट्स इज रिप्लेस्ड, still it would make some sense. Let's see an example. The first of these conditions is satisfied in the Lincoln example, but the second is not. Suppose the part Lincoln was an actor is replaced by there are lions in Africa. The result of this replacement is nonsense. The man who shot there are lions in Africa. अगर हम अब कंपेयर करो, चार्ली इज़ नीट एंड चार्ली इज़ स्वीट, हमने बोला ये कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट है जिसमें चार्ली इज़ स्वीट एक कंपोनेंट है पूरे स्टेटमेंट का. नाउ इफ वी रिप्लेस चार्ली इज़ स्वीट विद देयर आर लायंस इन अफ्रीका, सो इट विल बी चार्ली इज़ नीट एंड देयर आर लायंस इन अफ्रीका. सो दिस स्टिल मेक्स सम सेंस, दो कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है, बट इट इज़ नॉट कम्प्लीटली यूजलेस. लेकिन आप कंपेयर करो, द मैन हु शॉट देयर आर लायंस इन अफ्रीका, नाउ दिस इज़ अ कम्प्लीटली यूजलेस स्टेटमेंट. तो अगर हम एक कंपोनेंट को किसी दूसरे स्टेटमेंट के साथ रिप्लेस कर दे, स्टिल इट वुड मेक सम सेंस, तभी वो कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट होगा और तभी एक स्टेटमेंट उसका पूरे स्टेटमेंट का कंपोनेंट होगा. The term component is not a difficult one to understand, but like all logical terms, it must be defined accurately and applied carefully. तो component को समझना मुश्किल नहीं है, but जैसा कि logic में नहीं, this is a very fundamental thing in philosophy, that whenever you use a word, you define it very accurately, very appropriately. क्योंकि कई बार the layman language में use किया जाने वाला word, उसका meaning is very different from the, use in philosophy. That's why we have well established the meaning of very accurately the meaning of the term component. Now here on the right hand side you can see the definitions of each one, which can be very useful. Now let's come to the different logical connectives. There are several types of compound statements, each requiring its own logical notation. तो हमने compound statements का basic समझ लिया. Now how are different compound statements formed? Yeah, how are two simple statements connected? What are the different logical connections, logical connective? हम उसके बारे में पढ़ेंगे. So the पहला logical connective is, the first type of compound statement we consider is the conjunction. तो पहला वाला compound statement that we are considering is the conjunction. We can form the conjunction of two statements by placing the word and between them. The two statements so combined are called conjuncts. तो जो दो statements हम join करेंगे उन्हें कहा जाएगा conjuncts. And if we are joining two statements with the use of the word and, that is when it forms a conjunction. हमने example देखा, Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet. Charlie is neat is a simple statement. Charlie is sweet is a simple statement. And both these statements को join करा है हमने and का use करके. So it's a conjunction whose first conjunct, उसका पहला conjunct जो हमने and की help से join किया, उसका पहला conjunct is Charlie is neat and the second conjunct is Charlie is sweet. The word and is short and convenient, but it has other uses besides connecting statements. For example, the statement Lincoln and Grant were contemporaries. Now, अब हमें ये भी देखना है, we have to be very careful कि हम लोग and का यूज़ करें, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि हर जगह जहाँ पर and यूज़ हो रहा है then it's a conjunction. वो and तभी conjunction होगा जब दो simple statements को join करा. अगर हमने यहाँ पर example देखें, Lincoln and Grant were contemporaries. So this and is not a conjunctive here. ये दो statements को join नहीं कर रहा है. But simple statement expressing a relationship, ये and क्या कर रहा है, सिर्फ Lincoln और Grant के बीच का एक relationship बता रहा है. To have a unique symbol whose only function is to connect statement conjunctively, we use the dot as our symbol for conjunction. Thus, the previous conjunction can be written as Charlie is neat dot Charlie is sweet. So, हमने सबसे पहला logical connective जो देखा वो था and, which is conjunction, और इसको symbolize हमने किया है with a dot. So wherever there is an and, जहाँ पर वो उसका meaning बता रहा है, used as a conjunctive, जहाँ पर and को as a conjunctive use किया गया है, वहाँ पर the and in symbolic language can be replaced with a dot. More generally, where P and Q are any two statements, whatever, their conjunction is written P dot Q. In some books, the symbols are used to express conjunctions, such as आप देख सकते हैं कि an inverted triangle and the symbol and. तो these three are the basic symbols जो कि हम use करते हैं to express a conjunction and. Okay. So we know that every statement is either true or false. Therefore, we say that every statement has a truth value, where the truth value of a true statement is true and the truth value of a false statement is false. तो हर statement का एक truth value होता है, which is a very basic concept in logic जो हम पहले भी in detail discuss कर चुके हैं. The truth value of a statement, if it is false, that means the statement is false. If the truth value of a statement is true, इसका मतलब the statement is true. Using this concept, we can divide compound statements into two distinct categories according to whether the truth value of the compound statement is determined wholly by the truth values of its components or is determined by anything other than the truth value of its components. We apply this distinction to conjunctions. The truth value of the conjunction of two statements is determined wholly and entirely by the truth values of its two conjuncts. तो अगर हम एक conjunctive statement को देख रहे हैं तो हम दोनों हम उसके जो कंजंक्ट का जो दोनों कंजंक्ट्स हैं उसके ट्रूथ वैल्यू का यूज़ करके हम पूरे स्टेटमेंट की ट्रूथ वैल्यू को डिराइव करेंगे. इफ़ बोथ इट्स कंजंक्ट्स आर ट्रू देन द कंजंक्शन इज़ ट्रू. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, चार्ली इज़ नीट एंड चार्ली इज़ स्वीट. अगर चार्ली इज़ नीट भी ट्रू है और चार्ली इज़ स्वीट भी ट्रू है, दैट मीन्स द होल स्टेटमेंट चार्ली इज़ नीट एंड चार्ली इज़ स्वीट ये कम्प्लीटली ट्रू है. अदरवाइज इट इज़ फॉल्स. If Charlie is neat, मान लीजिए false है, and Charlie is sweet is true, even then the whole statement will be false क्योंकि we are using and. That means Charlie is both of the things. But पहला वाला statement that Charlie is neat is false. That means the whole statement Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet is false. The same goes, with if we apply the falsity to Charlie is sweet and the the truth value to Charlie is neat, even then the same thing goes. And if both of them are false, even then पूरा के पूरा statement will be false. For this reason, a conjunction is said to be a truth functional compound statement and its conjuncts are said to be truth functional components of it. Okay, so we call a conjunction to be a truth functional compound and its conjuncts are said to be truth functional components because उसके statement की truth and falsity के ऊपर we are basing the truth and falsity of our statement. The whole complete statement with the conjunction. Not every compound statement is truth functional. For example, the truth value of the compound statement Othello believes that Desdemona loves Cassio is not in any way determined by the truth value of its component. Simple statement Desdemona loves Cassio because it would be true that Othello believes that Desdemona loves Cassio regardless of whether she does or not. So the component Desdemona loves Cassio is not a truth functional component of the statement. Othello believes that Desdemona loves Cassio and the statement itself is not a truth functional compound statement. तो हर स्टेटमेंट ट्रूथ फंक्शनल कंपाउंड स्टेटमेंट नहीं होगा क्योंकि ओथेलो को लगता है कि डेस्डेमोना को कैसियो पसंद है. नाउ वेदर डेस्डेमोना लव्स कैसियो इज ट्रू और फॉल्स वो मैटर नहीं करता है बिकॉज द पॉइंट दैट वी आर स्ट्रेसिंग ऑन इज कि ओथेलो बिलीव्स दैट डेस्डेमोना लव्स कैसियो. So whether Desdemona loves it or not is not our point of discussion here. So not every compound statement is a truth functional compound statement. तो हमें वो भी ध्यान रखना होगा कि सारे statements are not truth functional compound statements. For our present purposes, we define a component of a compound statement as being a truth functional component if when the component is replaced in the compound by any different statement having the same truth value as each other, the different compound statements produced by those replacement have the same truth values as each other. तो हम truth फंक्शनल कॉम्पोनेंट सिर्फ तब बोलेंगे जब हमने उसी ट्रूथ वैल्यू के साथ, मान लीजिए कि एक चार्ली इज़ स्वीट इज़ ट्रू एंड चार्ली इज़ नीट इज़ ऑल्सो ट्रू. अब हमने चार्ली इज़ स्वीट को चेंज करके चार्ली इज़ टॉल कर दिया. नाउ द मैटर डज नॉट मैटर हियर. what is the information, description, adjective, that does not matter. what matters is Charlie is sweet भी true था and Charlie is tall भी true है. तो अगर हमने Charlie is sweet के साथ Charlie is tall को replace कर दिया है, but because उसकी truth value is true as Charlie is sweet, तो the whole statement would be true only. Now a compound statement is defined as being a truth functional compound statement if all of its components are truth functional components of it. तो अगर उसके सारे components are truth functional components तभी वो पूरा statement truth functional compound statement कहलाएगा. You can refer to the definitions जो कि sidelines में दी हुई है book के, otherwise the text also has the same definition. We shall be concerned only with those compound statements that are truth functionally compound in the remainder of this text. Therefore, we shall use the term simple statement to refer to any statement that is not truth functionally compound. तो अगर कोई भी statement truth functionally compound नहीं है, हम उसको simple statement की तरह ही refer करेंगे. And we are going to use only the truth functional components. A conjunction is a truth functional compound statement. So a dot symbol is a truth functional connective. Given any two statements P and Q, there are only 4 possible sets of truth values they can have. These 4 possibility cases in the truth value of the conjunction each can be displayed as follows. Okay, so अब हम देखेंगे that if we look at this, if we represent the truth values true and false by the capital letters T and F, the determination of the truth value of conjunction by the truth values of its conjuncts can be represented more compactly and more clearly by means of a truth table. तो हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं कि हमने अब देख लिया कि okay, the dot is a replacement of this is a symbol for and P and Q are two statements. अब हम देखेंगे कि जो पूरा स्टेटमेंट है विद द कंजंक्टिव वो कब ट्रू होगा कब फॉल्स होगा, तो हम उसको इफ़ यू लुक एट द सेंटेंस वेयर पी इज़ ट्रू एंड क्यू इज़ ट्रू पी डॉट क्यू इज़ ट्रू, वेयर पी इज़ ट्रू एंड क्यू इज़ फॉल्स पी डॉट क्यू इज़ फॉल्स, वेयर पी इज़ फॉल्स एंड क्यू इज़ ट्रू पी डॉट क्यू इज़ फॉल्स एट्सेट्रा. सो हमने इसका ट्रूथ टेबल में देख लिया कि इफ़ पी इज़ also true and q is also true, in only that case p dot q will be true. बाकी सारे cases में conjunction के case में अगर एक भी statement is false, then the whole statement with the conjunctive will be false. You can look at it that p dot q का जो result है it is t f f f, क्योंकि last के तीनों cases में there is an f in some part of the statement, in one of the component is false. तो अगर एक भी component false है the whole conjunction will be false. So the only case जहाँ पे a conjunction will be true is when both the components are true. This truth table can be taken as defining the dot symbol because it explains what truth values are assumed by P dot Q in every possible case. We abbreviate simple statements by capital letters, generally using for this purpose a letter that will help us remember which statement it abbreviates. Thus we may abbreviate Charlie is neat and Charlie is sweet as N dot S. Some conjunctions, both of whose conjuncts have the same subject term, for example, Byron was a great poet and Byron was a great adventurer, are more briefly and perhaps more naturally stated in English by placing the and between the predicate terms and repeating the subject term, as in Byron was a great poet and a great adventurer. For our purposes, regard the letters as formulating the statement as a formal and symbolize either one as P dot A. If both conjunctions of conjunction have the same predicate term, as in Lewis was a famous explorer and Clark was a famous explorer, the conjunction is usually abbreviated in English by placing the word and between the subject terms and not repeating the predicate, as in Lewis and Clark are famous explorers. Either formulation is symbolized as L dot C. A very simple thing कि अब हमने देखा कि एंड को हम सिम्बलाइज करेंगे डॉट से. अब अगर हम सिंपल उसका कॉम्पोनेंट स्टेटमेंट देखें तो कॉम्पोनेंट्स को सिम्बलाइज करने के लिए हम सबसे पहले प्रेडिकेट टर्म्स का यूज़ करते हैं. प्रेडिकेट को हम लोग कैपिटल लेटर्स में लिखते हैं. बाय चांस उसके प्रेडिकेट आर सेम. For example, Lewis was a famous explorer and Clark was a famous explorer. Now Lewis and Clark दोनों famous explorers थे, तो उसका predicate term famous explorer जो है a famous explorer is the same. So we use the subject, the capital of the subject for our symbolization. As shown by the truth table defining the dot symbol, a conjunction is true if and only if both its conjuncts are true. The word and has another use in which it does not merely signify truth functional conjunction but has the same sense and subsequently meaning temporal succession. Thus the statement Jones entered the country at New York and went straight to Chicago is significant and might be true, whereas Jones went straight to Chicago and entered the country at New York is hardly intelligible. There is quite a difference between he took off his shoes and got into bed and he got into bed and took off his shoes. Such examples show the desirability of having a special symbol with an exclusively truth functional conjunctive use. तो and के बाकी uses भी हमने यहाँ पर example देखा कि he took off his shoes and got into bed and he got into bed and took off his shoes. Both these statements and use करें लेकिन दोनों का meaning बहुत अलग है, because पहले वाले में he took off his shoes and got into bed and he got into bed and took off his shoes. So both these statements use and, but they are quite different. Okay. Truth table, an array of on which all possible truth values of compound statements are displayed. The truth table is basically कि हम सारे truth values को display कर ले उसको. Note that the English words but, yet, also, still, although, however, moreover, nevertheless, and so on, and even the comma and the semicolon can be used to cojoin between two statements into a single compound statement. In their conjunctive sense, they can all be represented by the dot symbol. तो हम देखेंगे कि and के साथ the words but, yet, also, still, although, however, moreover, and nevertheless. Wherever these words are wherever these words are used, everywhere हम उसको symbolization में dot का use करेंगे. Now let's talk about negation. The negation, contradictory, or denial of a statement in English is often formed by the intersection of a not in the original statement. अगर हमें English में किसी चीज़ को negate करना है तो हम लोग not use कर लेंगे. For example, Charlie is sweet, Charlie is not sweet. Alternatively, one can express the negation of a statement in English by prefixing to it phrase it is false that. So हमने not का use कर लिया, हमने it is false that, it is not the case that, it is not the case that Charlie is sweet, it is false that Charlie is neat. ये हमने different phrases का use कर लिया to negate the whole sentence. It is customary to use the symbol or called a curl or a tilde to form the negation of a statement. अब हम जैसे and को dot के साथ symbolize करते हैं, हम लोग negation को with a curl symbolize करते हैं. You can see the symbol. Again, some books use the symbol. Okay, some books also use the symbol a hyphen for negation. Thus, where M symbolizes the statement all humans are mortal, the various statements not all humans are mortal. Some humans are not mortal. It is false that all humans are mortal, and it is not the case that humans are mortal. It is false that all humans are okay. All of these are symbolized as negation M. More generally, where P is any statement, where whatever is negation is written as negation P. तो अगर हमने एक स्टेटमेंट देखा तो हमने एग्जाम्पल्स भी देख लिए कि नेगेशन एम जो है वो किन किन केसेस में होगा. इट इज़ नॉट द केस, इट इज़ फॉल्स दैट, सम आर नॉट. All of these will be negation M cases. Some logicians treat the curl as another connective, but since it does not actually connect two or more units, it is sufficient to note that it performs an operation reversing the truth value of a single unit, and thus may be referred to as an operator. It is a truth functional operator, of course. The negation of any true statement is false, and the negation of any false statement is true. This fact can be presented very simply and clearly by means of a truth table. तो हमने negation का भी truth table देख लिया. Some regard the negation as a logical connective, but it is not connecting anything. जैसे कि conjunction में तो दो simple statements connect हो रहे थे, लेकिन negation में they are not connecting anything. So some may regard it as a connective, but for our purposes हम उसको truth functional operator की तरह use करेंगे, जो कि truth value है उसको reverse करने में help करता है. You can see by the help of the truth table that P, if it is true, तो negation P will be false. तो truth value को रिवर्स करने के लिए नेगेशन का यूज़ होता है. Now come to another, the second connective, that is disjunction. The disjunction or alteration of two statements is formed in English by inserting the word or between them. The two component statements so combined are called disjuncts or alternatives. तो जैसे conjunction है और conjuncts कहलाते हैं, वैसे disjunction और disjunct कहलाते हैं. For conjunction we use and, for disjunction we use or. The English word or is ambiguous, having two related but distinguishable meanings. One of them is exemplified in the statement premiums will be waived in the event of sickness or unemployment. The intention here is obviously that premiums are waived not only for sick persons and for employed persons, but also for persons who are both sick and employed. This sense of the word or is called weak or inclusive. तो एक इंक्लूसिव डिसजंक्शन और या फिर वीक डिसजंक्शन कहलाता है. दिस सेंस ऑफ द वर्ड और इज कॉल्ड वीक और इज इंक्लूसिव. एंड इंक्लूसिव डिसजंक्शन इज ट्रू इफ वन और द अदर और बोथ disjuncts are true, only if both disjuncts are false, if they are inclusive disjunction false. The inclusive or has the sense of either, possibly both. सो इंक्लूसिव तभी फॉल्स होगा जब दोनों डिसजंक्शन फॉल्स होंगे, वरना वो हर केस में ट्रू ही होगा. ओके, सो वेयर प्रिसिजन इज एट प्रीमियम, द इंक्लूसिव और हैज़ द सेंस ऑफ ईदर, पॉसिबली बोथ. वेयर प्रिसिजन इज एट अ प्रीमियम एज इन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स एंड अदर लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट्स, दिस सेंस इज ऑफन मेड एक्सप्लिसिट बाय द यूज ऑफ द फ्रेज एंड और. सो वीक या इंक्लूसिव डिसजंक्शन होगा कि जब सिर्फ दोनों डिसजंक्ट्स ट्रू है तभी वो पूरा डिसजंक्टिव स्टेटमेंट ट्रू होगा, वरना वो फॉल्स ही होगा. The word or is also used in a strong or exclusive sense in which the meaning is not at least one but at least one and at most one. Where a restaurant lists salad or dessert on its dinner menu, it is clearly meant that for the stated price of the meal, the dinner may have one of the other both but no, both not. The exclusive मतलब कि दोनों नहीं होंगे, दोनों में से या तो ये होगा या फिर ये होगा. Where precision is at a premium and exclusive sense of or is intended, the phrase but not both is often added. तो अगर हम इंग्लिश में देखें तो और मतलब स्ट्रॉन्ग डिस्जंक्शन के लिए हम बट नॉट बोथ का यूज़ करेंगे एंड वीक के लिए एंड स्लैश और का यूज़ करते हैं. We interpret the inclusive disjunction of two statements as an assertion that at least one of the statements is true, and we interpret that exclusive disjunction as an assertion that at least one of the statements is true but both are not not both are true. The exclusive का मतलब दोनों सच नहीं है, दोनों में से one is true. Note that the two kinds of disjunctions have a part of their meanings in common. This partial common meaning that at least one of the disjuncts is true is the whole meaning of the inclusive or and a part of the meaning of the exclusive or. Although disjunctions are stated ambiguously in English, they are unambiguous in Latin. Latin has two different words corresponding to the two different senses of the English word or. The word sense well signifies weak, the inclusive disjunction, and the Latin word out corresponds to the word or in its stronger exclusive sense. It is customary to use the initial letter of the word well to stand for or in its weak inclusive sense, where P and Q are any two statements, whatever their weak or inclusive disjunction is written as P, V, Q are symbol for inclusive disjunction called a wedge, or less frequently a V is also a frequent is a truth functional connective. A weak disjunction is false only if both disjunctions are false. So basically कि Latin में weak या फिर inclusive disjunctions के लिए हम well का use करते हैं and strong या फिर exclusive disjunctions के लिए we use the word out in Latin. So well को symbolization हम लोग for disjunction we use the weak or the inclusive disjunction, उसके लिए we use the symbol as V which is also called as wedge. तो आप देख सकते हैं that if P is true, Q is true, P wedge Q, the whole disjunctive statement will be true. The only case in which it will be false is when both the disjuncts are false. सिर्फ तभी वो false होगा. अगर हम देखें तो ये उससे उल्टा है. Okay. In conjunction the value was T F F F and here the value is T T T F. Okay. So in this जो हम disjunction पढ़ेंगे उसमें the thing is that even if one of the statements is true, the whole disjunctive statement has to be true. The first specimen argument presented in this section was a disjunctive syllogism. A syllogism is a disjunctive argument consisting of two premises and conclusion. So syllogism क्या होता है? Syllogism is basically two premises and one conclusion. That is what is called a syllogism. So अगर हम देखें, the blind prisoner has a red hat or the blind prisoner has a white hat. So this was a disjunctive syllogism. The blind prisoner does not have a red head, therefore the blind prisoner has a white head. So the person has either this or that, and or. So the person does not have this, that means the person has that. So this is a disjunctive syllogism. Its form is characterized by saying that its first premise is a disjunction, its second premise is the negation of the first disjunct of the first premise, and its conclusion is the same as the second disjunct of the first premise. It is evident that the word disjunctive syllogism so defined is valid on either interpretation of the word or, that is regardless of whether an inclusive or exclusive disjunction is intended. The typical valid argument that has a disjunction for a premise is like the disjunctive syllogism, valid on either interpretation of the word or. So a simplification may be effected by translating the English word or into our logical symbol, regardless of which meaning of the English word or is intended. Only a close examination of the context or an explicit questioning of the speaker or writer can reveal which sense of or is intended. This problem, often impossible to resolve, can be avoided if we agree to treat any occurrence of the word or as inclusive. On the other hand, if it is stated explicitly that the disjunction is intended to be exclusive by means of the added phrase but not both, for example, we have the symbolic machinery to formulate that additional sense as will be shown directly. Where both disjunctions have either the same subject or the same predicate, it is often natural to compress the formulation of their disjunction in English by placing the or, that there is no need to repeat the common part of two disjuncts. Thus, either Smith is the owner or Smith or is the manager might equally be stated as Smith is either the owner or the manager. and either one is properly symbolized as O wedge M, and either red is guilty or Butch is guilty, may be stated as either red or Butch is guilty. Either one may be symbolized as R wedge B. So हमने बेसिक चीज़ देख ली दैट बट नॉट बोथ का यूज़ करने पर ही वो एक एक्सक्लूसिव disjunction बनेगा. Other than that it will be a weak or an inclusive disjunction. And to symbolize हम लोग कई बार उसको commonalize कर लेते हैं the subject or the predicate as we did in the case of the conjunction. So here for example we have seen that either Smith is the owner or Smith is the manager को हमने either Smith is the owner or the manager. So this owner wedge manager O wedge M. This is how we symbolize it. The word unless is often used to form the disjunction of two statements. Thus, you will do poorly on the exam unless you study is correctly symbolized as P wedge S, because that disjunction asserts that one of the disjuncts is true, and hence that if one of them is false, the other must be true. Of course, you may study and do poorly on the exam. So, other than or, unless is also used, और unless को भी हम symbolize करते हैं in the form of wedge. जैसे कि हमने and में देखा that but, yet, also, still, although, however, moreover, nevertheless, ये सारों को हम symbolize करते हैं with the help of a dot. Similarly, unless और को भी हम with a wedge symbolize करते हैं. The word unless is sometimes used to convey more information. It may mean, depending on the context, that one or the other proposition is true but that not both are true. That is, unless may be intended as an exclusive disjunction. तो कई बार unless exclusive disjunction के लिए भी use किया जा सकता है. Thus it was noted by Ted Turner that global warming will put New York underwater in 100 years and will be the biggest catastrophe the world has ever seen unless we have nuclear war. Now here the speaker did mean that at least one of the two disjuncts is true, but of course they cannot both be true. Other uses of unless are not ambiguous. When we say the picnic will be held unless it rains, we surely do mean that the picnic will be held if it does not rain. Do we mean that it will not be held if it does rain? That may be uncertain. It is a wise policy to treat every disjunction as weak or inclusive unless it is certain that an exclusive disjunction is meant. Unless is best symbolized simply with the wedge. तो unless को भी हम with the wedge ही symbolize करते हैं, और it is better कि हम disjunction को weak या inclusive ही मानते रहे जब तक वो stated ना हो कि yes it is an exclusive disjunction. Punctuation. In English, punctuation is absolutely required if complicated statements are to be clear. Many different punctuation marks are used, without which many sentences would be highly ambiguous. For example, quite different meanings attached to the teacher says John is a fool when it gives a different punctuation. The teacher says John is a fool. So punctuation does matter. हमने यहाँ पर example देखा, the teacher says John is a fool and the teacher, comma, says John is a fool. So here उसका मीनिंग कम्प्लीटली चेंज हो गया. पहले भी का मतलब कि टीचर कह रही थी कि जॉन फूल है, दूसरे में जॉन कह रहा था कि टीचर फूल है. द टीचर सेज जॉन इज़ अ फूल, तो टीचर कह रही है अब जॉन इज़ अ फूल. पंक्चुएशन इज़ इक्वली नेसेसरी इन मैथमेटिक्स. तो पंक्चुएशन मैथमेटिक्स में नेसेसरी है. हम जो बॉडमास रूल पढ़ते हैं उसमें ब्रैकेट्स, that is very necessary in mathematics as well. So in the absence of a special convention, no number is uniquely donated by 2 into 3 plus 5. Although when it is made clear how its constituents are to be grouped, it denotes either 11 or 16. The first when punctuated 2 into 3 plus 5, the second when punctuated 2 into 3 plus 5. To avoid ambiguity and to make the meaning clear, the punctuation marks in mathematics appear in the form of parentheses, which are used to group individual symbols, brackets, which are used to group expressions that include parentheses, and braces, which are used to group expressions that include braces. So, brackets in mathematics are also very useful. The punctuation. In the language of symbolic logic, those same punctuation marks, parentheses, brackets, and braces are equally essential because in logic compound statements are themselves often compounded together into more complicated ones. Thus, P dot Q wedge R is ambiguous. It might mean the conjunction of P with the disjunction of Q with R, or it might mean the disjunction whose first disjunct is conjunction of P dot Q and whose second disjunct is R. तो हमने यहाँ पर देखा था P डॉट क्यू वेज आर. अब इसमें हमने पहले P डॉट क्यू किया या पहले Q वेज आर किया है, या P डॉट क्यू का हमने वेज किया है R के साथ, या Q वेज R का हमने डॉट किया है P के साथ. सो पंक्चुएशन इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि कहाँ पर हम उसको ब्रैकेट को प्लेस कर रहे हैं. अब हम अगर आगे एग्जाम्पल देखें तो P डॉट क्यू वेज आर एक अलग टाइप का वो होगा स्टेटमेंट, एंड P डॉट क्यू वेज आर एक अलग होगा, बिकॉज पहले वाले में दोनों डिस्जंक्ट्स ही चेंज हो रहा है. P dot Q wedge R में first disjunct is P and second disjunct is Q wedge R. लेकिन P dot Q wedge R में first disjunct is P dot Q and the second is R. That the different ways of punctuating the original formula do make a difference can be seen by considering the case in which P is false and Q and R both true. In this case, the second punctuated formula is true because its second disjunct is true, whereas the first one is false because its first conjunct is false. Okay, the difference in punctuation makes all the difference between truth and falsehood. For different punctuations can assign different truth values to the ambiguous P dot Q wedge R. The word either has a variety of different meanings and uses in English. It has conjunctive force in the sense there is a danger on either side. More often, it is used to introduce the first disjunct in a disjunction as either the blind prisoner has a red hat. अब either अगर हमें देखिए conjunction में तो क्या हो रहा है that because we are using and but yet still, so the numbering, the sequence of the conjunct is not very important. Now I'm stressing it is not very important does not mean that it is not at all important. लेकिन disjunct में it becomes important because we use either, we use unless. So the words, the statement that is followed after either is usually the first disjunct. Okay, so for example, more often it is used to introduce the first disjunct. जैसे हमने देखा, either the blind prisoner has a red hat or the blind prisoner has a white hat. Now the blind prisoner has a red hat is the first disjunct, and the blind prisoner has a white hat is the second disjunct. That it contributes to the rhetorical balance of the sentence, but it does not affect its meaning. Perhaps the most important use of the word either is to punctuate a compound statement. Thus the sentence, the organization will meet on Thursday and Anand will be elected or the election will be postponed, is ambiguous. This ambiguity can be resolved in one direction by placing the word either at its beginning, or in other direction by inserting the word either before the name Anand. तो अगर हम देख लें that the organization will meet on Thursday and either Anand will be elected or the election will be postponed. तो हमने जैसे आनंद के आगे either लगाया, the whole sentence become much more clear. The ambiguous formula P dot Q wedge R is discussed in the preceding paragraph corresponds to the ambiguous sentence disexamined. तो अब इसका अगर हम देखें that organization will meet on Thursday dot Anand will be elected wedge the election will be postponed. So P dot Q wedge R. The negation of a disjunction is often formed by the use of the third phrase neither nor. तो अगर हमें डिसजंक्शन का निगेशन बनाना है तो हमने देख लिया कि बस नीदर नॉर, ईदर की जगह नीदर नॉर का यूज़ कर लेंगे. द स्टेटमेंट ईदर फिल्मोर और हार्डिंग वॉज द ग्रेटेस्ट यूएस प्रेसिडेंट can be contradicted by the statement neither Fillmore nor Harding was the greatest US president. The disjunction would be symbolized as F wedge H and its negation as either negation F wedge H or negation F dot negation H. The logical should be clear. Okay, it should be clear that to deny a disjunction which states that one or the other statement is true requires that both statements be stated to be false. Okay. Anyways, the word both in English has a very important role in logical punctuation and it deserves the most careful attention. When we say both Jamal and Derek are not, we are saying, as just noted just above, that neither Jamal nor Derek. तो तब हमने बोला कि both are not, both Jamal and Derek are not का मतलब ना तो जमाल ना ही Derek. We are applying the negation to each of them. But when we say Jamal and Derek are not both, तो जब हमने बोला कि Jamal and Derek दोनों नहीं करेंगे, that means we are saying that something very different. We are applying negation to the pair of them taken together. तो are not both का मतलब कि दोनों में से कोई एक नहीं करेगा और एक करेगा. It is not the case that they are both. This difference is very substantial. Entirely different meanings arise when the word both is placed differently in the English sentence. Consider the great difference between the meanings of Jamal and Derek will not both be elected and Jamal and Derek will both not be elected. तो पहले वाले में Jamal and Derek will not both be elected मतलब Jamal elect नहीं होगा या Derek elect नहीं होगा, दोनों elect नहीं होंगे, दोनों में से कोई एक होगा. और दूसरे वाले में Jamal and Derek will both not be elected, दोनों ही elect नहीं होंगे, ना Jamal होगा ना Derek होगा. The first denies the conjunction J dot D and may be symbolized as negation J dot D, and the second says that each one of the two will not be elected and is symbolized as negation J dot negation D. Merely changing the position of the words both and not alters the logical force of what is asserted. तो both and not की positioning बहुत ज़रूरी कि वो both not है या फिर not both है. तो उससे द सिम्बलाइजेशन कम्प्लीटली डिफर्स. जब हम बोल रहे हैं कि नॉट बोथ विल बी, तो इसमें हो जाएगा निगेशन ब्रैकेट जे डॉट टी, और जब हम बोल रहे हैं कि बोथ नॉट, तो हो जाएगा निगेशन जे डॉट निगेशन टी. बोथ ही नॉट होंगे, दोनों ही नहीं होगा. Of course, the word both does not always have this role. Sometimes we use it only to add emphasis. When we say that both Lewis and Clark were great explorers, we use the word only to state more emphatically what is said by Lewis and Clark were great explorers. When the task is logical analysis, the punctuational role of both must be very carefully determined. तो both का use कई बार emphasize करने के लिए भी होता है, तो not necessary कि both जहाँ पर use है वो disjunction का ही role play करेगा. In the interest of brevity, that is to decrease the number of parentheses required, it is convenient to establish the convention that in any formula the negation symbol will be understood to apply to the smallest statement that the punctuation permits. Without this convention, the formula negation p wedge q is ambiguous, meaning either negation p wedge q or negation p wedge q. By convention, we will take it to mean the first of these alternatives, for the curl can and therefore by convention apply to the first component p rather than to the larger formula. तो हम लोग हर बार ज़रूरी नहीं है कि ब्रैकेट्स का यूज़ करें, पैरेंथेसिस का यूज़ करें. जैसे पहले वाले केस में हमने देखा नेगेशन पी वेच क्यू, इसका मतलब वो नेगेशन से फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट पर अप्लाई कर रहे विच इज़ पी, जिसमें हमें नेगेशन पी को ब्रैकेट में लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं, क्योंकि हमने ये इस्टेब्लिश कर लिया कि अगर वो नेगेशन पी वेच क्यू है, इसका मतलब वो सिर्फ पी के ऊपर नेगेशन अप्लाई हो रहा है. और अगर नेगेशन ब्रैकेट में पी वेच क्यू है, इसका मतलब द नेगेशन इज बीइंग अप्लाइड टू द होल पी वेच क्यू, पूरे के ऊपर हम नेगेशन को अप्लाई कर रहे हैं. Given a set of punctuation marks for our symbolic language, it is possible to write not just conjunctions, negation, and weak disjunctions in that language, but exclusive disjunctions as well. The exclusive disjunction of P and Q asserts that at least one of them is true, but not both are true, which is written as P wedge Q dot negation P dot Q. तो हमने देखा कि हम लोग एक्सक्लूसिव या फिर स्ट्रॉन्ग डिसजंक्शंस को भी इस तरीके से लिख सकते हैं, विच इज़ पी वेच क्यू डॉट निगेशन विद दैट इज वन ऑफ देम इज ट्रू बट नॉट both are true. Another way of expressing the exclusive disjunction is a wedge and niche and underline below the wedge. So that is also a way of expressing the exclusive disjunction. The truth value of any compound statement constructed for simple statements using the only curl and the truth functional connectives dot and wedge is completely determined by the truth or falsehood of its component simple statements. If we know the truth values of simple statements, the truth value of any truth functional compound of them is easily calculated. In working with such compound statements, we always begin with their innermost components and work outward. तो हमेशा उसको सॉल्व करने के लिए हम सबसे अंदर से, सबसे कोर से स्टार्ट करते हुए हम उसको बाहर की तरफ पढ़ते हैं. जैसे इफ फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ ए एंड बी आर ट्रू स्टेटमेंट्स एंड एक्स एंड वाई आर फॉल्स स्टेटमेंट्स, we calculate the truth value of the compound statement negation a dot x dot y wedge negation b as follows. Because x is false, the conjunction a dot x is false. तो हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं that अब a and b are true and x and y are false, so we simply हमने उसको चेंज कर लिया. अब वो a डॉट x की जगह हम लिख देंगे t डॉट f एंड y वेज निगेशन p की जगह लिख देंगे हम f वेज निगेशन t. अब हम उसको सॉल्व करेंगे. तो सबसे पहले अगर हमने देखा t डॉट f इज f, a डॉट x की जगह t डॉट f हमने कर दिया, तो इट इज़ अब हो गया निगेशन t डॉट f इज f, दैट मीन्स निगेशन f टू डॉट. अब ये निगेशन f है, ये पूरे पे अप्लाई नहीं करा, इट इज़ ओनली अप्लाई टू निगेशन f डॉट. नाउ f wedge negation t, that is f wedge f negation t is f, तो f wedge f is f, that means negation f dot t wedge f wedge f is f, तो dot f, तो t डॉट एफ दैट इज़ f, और उसके बाद सबसे बाहर पूरा बड़ा एक निगेशन लगा है पूरे ब्रैकेट पे जो कि स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट से उसके बाद, दैट मीन्स दैट इट इज़ अगर हम सॉल्व करें सो इट वुड बी देन ट्रू. So because x is false, the conjunction a dot x is false, and so its negation a dot x is true. B is true, so its negation b is false, and y is also false. The disjunction of y with b y wedge negation b is false. The bracketed formula negation a dot x dot y wedge negation b is a conjunction of true with a false statement and is therefore false. Hence its negation, which is the entire statement, is true. Such a stepwise procedure always enables us to determine the truth value of a compound statement from the truth value of its component. तो अगर हमें किसी भी एक स्टेटमेंट का ट्रूथ वैल्यू निकालना है तो दिस इज हाउ वी गो अबाउट इट. उसके हम कोर से स्टार्ट करेंगे, उसके बिल्कुल इनर ब्रैकेट से स्टार्ट करते हुए वी विल सॉल्व आउटवर्ड्स. इन सम circumstances we may be able to determine the truth value of a truth functional compound statement even if we cannot determine the truth or falsehood of any of its component simple statements. We may do this by first calculating the truth value of the compound statement on the assumption that a given simple component is true, and then by calculating the truth value of the compound statement on the assumption that the same simple compound statement is false. If both calculations yield the same truth value for the compound statement in question, we have determined the truth value of the compound statement without having to determine the truth value of its unknown component, because we know that the truth value of the component cannot be other than true or false. Truth tables will allow us to expand this method to cases 1. So basically हमने यहाँ पर देख लिया. Now here is an example. I will study hard and pass the exam or fail. That is study hard and pass. S.P wedge F. अब हमने जब ब्रैकेट्स प्लेस कर दिया तो ब्रैकेट्स प्लेस करने पर क्या डिफरेंस आएगा. सो दिस इज एन ओवरव्यू जो हमने पूरा उसका समझा. The exercise that you need to do, for example, using the truth table definitions of the dot, the wedge and the curl, determine which of the following statements are true. For example, Rome is the capital of Italy, wedge, Rome is the capital of Spain. Now, you know that Rome is the capital of Italy is a true statement. तो हमें पता है कि Rome is the capital of Italy is true and Rome is the capital of Spain is false. तो हमारे पास symbolization में क्या आ गया? T wedge F. Now T wedge F हमने disjunction में पढ़ा है that even if one of the components is true, the whole disjunctive statement will be true. That means it is true. Let's try and solve another exercise, another question. For example, if you see the 12th one, negation Paris is the capital of France, negation Stockholm is the capital of Norway. Paris is the capital of France is true and Stockholm is the capital of Norway is false. That means we have negation T dot negation F. Negation T will be F dot negation F will be T. So F dot T is F and पूरे के ऊपर हमने negation apply करते हैं. That means the value is true. Okay, so इस तरीके से you have to solve this question. It's a very simple, easy question, the whole exercise. जैसा हमने पहले वाले क्वेश्चन में बेसिकली हमारे स्टेटमेंट्स दिए हुए थे जिसकी ट्रूथ एंड फॉल्स वैल्यूज़ हमें खुद को पता करनी थी. इट्स अ वेरी बेसिक जीके वाले पे डिपेंड होते हुए दे हैव गिवन द क्वेश्चन. इन बी दे हैव गिवन A, B, C आर ट्रू एंड X, Y, Z आर फॉल्स. तो बेसिकली वी हैव टू प्लेस A एंड B एंड C की जगह हमें T को प्लेस करना है, X, Y एंड Z की जगह हमें F को प्लेस करना है. देन वी हैव टू सॉल्व यूजिंग द ट्रूथ टेबल्स. तो हमें उसको यूज़ करके वी हैव टू सॉल्व द एक्सरसाइज. And the C is using the letters E, I, J, L and S to abbreviate the simple statements. Egypt's food shortage worsens. Iran raises the price of oil. Jordan requests more US aid. And Libya raises the price of oil. And Saudi Arabia buys 400 warplanes. Symbolize the statement. So, okay, पहले दोनों questions में हमें उसकी truth या falsity को पता करना है. This question we only have to symbolize. For example, they have given us Iran raises the price of oil is symbolized as I. They have given us the symbolization of I. And Libya does not raise the price of oil. तो इसका symbolization is L. तो Iran raises the price of oil I. Because a but is used हमने उसकी जगह dot place करेंगे. तो I dot Libya does not raise the price of oil because the not is here तो negation L. तो I dot negation L. अगर हम देखें let's see question number 12. It is not the case that both Egypt's food shortage worsens and Jordan requests more US aid. इस केस में now it is not the case that both Egypt's food shortage worsens and Jordan requests more US aid. So Egypt's food shortage worsens E and है तो dot आ जाएगा E dot J. Now क्योंकि it is not the case that both है कि दोनों के ऊपर नहीं होगा तो हमने देख लिया क्योंकि both it is not the case that both है तो negation जो है वो हम दोनों पे अप्लाई करेंगे दोनों के ऊपर ही. तो negation ब्रैकेट E डॉट J क्योंकि हमें दिखाना है कि हमने नेगेशन दोनों पे अप्लाई किया है इसके लिए हमारा ब्रैकेट वहाँ पर प्लेस करना इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. लेट्स लुक एट अनदर एग्जाम्पल. लेट्स लुक एट क्वेश्चन नंबर 23. सो क्वेश्चन नंबर 23 में again either Egypt's food shortage worsens or Jordan requests more US aid but neither Libya nor Iran raises the price of oil. So it's a very easy question. Either Egypt's food shortage worsens or Jordan requests more US aid. So E veg J, but that is E veg J bracket में आ जाएगा dot, neither Libya nor Iran raises the price of oil. Then again bracket, so it will be E veg J in bracket dot another bracket, neither Libya nor Iran raises the price of oil, तो neither nor है तो dot negation, फिर उसके बाद हम negation के बाद bracket place करेंगे L veg I. Okay, so that is how the symbolization will be done. You can refer to the end of this chapter for the answers to the starred questions 20, 25, 15, 10, 5, 1, and you can complete these 3 exercises. It will be very good, आपके practice के लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा.